doesn't seem to really have a chance. Right? This is a very common conundrum for voters. I'm sure many of us have gone into the voting booth and had this very thought, like, you know, this person is the most like me ideologically, but they can't win. So I got to choose between one of the two people who can win, right? This is the conundrum that ranked choice voting proposes to solve. And frankly, it's a kind of logic that makes a lot of sense to engage in right now as a voter, right? Because you have a very limited resource of how you can support candidates, and you want to deploy that resource in a way that is most likely to get an outcome that's closest to what you want. So you're making this sort of like two-axis calculation of like who is likely to win and who is aligned with my values. It's a complex calculation, but it's a really important one because you want your vote to matter, right? So I don't think you're wrong to think about things that way in the current environment. But I think we ought to be trying to strive for an electoral environment where you don't have to make both of those calculations at once, where you can just cast your ballot on the basis of who's most closely aligned with your views. And that has a lot of benefits. Of course, there's the ones that Daniel talked about in terms of being able to more accurately express your feelings as a voter, right? That's cool. But you know, to me, I think the thing that's the most exciting and important about it is that it creates these pathways for non-traditional candidates and candidates who don't have the establishment backing, but who are maybe talking about the issues that are most resonant to voters. So that voters can say, yeah, you know what? I don't care if this person doesn't seem like the most likely candidate to win. I'm going to put my vote, I'm going to put whatever sort of like resources I have to support behind that person. And that's the other piece of this, right? I told these guys I was going to be brief, but now I'm like on a roll about this. The other piece about this is that it's not just about the voter's decision, right? It's about the decision of institutional players and organizations and labor unions and elected officials like me. Right now, we make decisions about who to support in elections on both of those axes, right? Again, we're thinking that same two-axis way, like who's most aligned with my values and who's most likely to win and actually be able to implement those values. But we also could make decisions in a different way if the voting system were different, right? If we knew that those candidates had a different pathway to winning their elections, we would be more willing to step out of our comfort zones and support candidates who maybe don't seem like the most likely to win, but who are most aligned with our values, right? And I think that creates the kind of pathways for young, non-traditional candidates to show up and ask for political support and win that political support from institutional players, which can build the pathway to their electoral success. So, all that being said, we certainly face a difficult uphill battle in terms of passing this, and we talked a little bit about the structural obstacles. And Daniel laid out some wonderful case studies, and I want to just add one more, and this is a story I tell a lot, and it's about the minimum wage. When I first came to Springfield, it was right before I was sworn in. It was 2014, it was in the fall, it was after the general election, and we had what's called veto session, which we're about to actually go down to in a few weeks, where the legislature convenes after the election to take up some last-minute items before the new legislature is sworn in. And the big question in the 2014 veto session was whether Democrats would try to push through a $10 an hour minimum wage. Because we still had majorities in both chambers. We had a Democratic governor who was on his way out the door, but he could still sign this bill before Bruce Rauner got there. And I sat in caucus with all the current Democrats, in the room not that different from this one, and the speaker was up at the front of the room and said, we've spoken to all the members, and unfortunately we have around 50 votes for the $10 an hour minimum wage, so we're not going to call the bill. You need 60 votes in the House to pass things. And we had 69 Democrats, we had considerably more than 60 Democrats. So I had two thoughts in that moment. First of all, 50 out of like 70 of you want to, who are the other 20 Democrats in this room? What are you all about? Because this is my first time showing up, you know? This is my first time meeting these folks. So I was like, that was taking me back. And the second thought I had was, man, I bet the speaker didn't try that hard. Because I have heard stories, and now at this point I've seen personally, that when he wants to twist people's arms and get things done, he doesn't stop at 50 votes, right? He is able to push that threshold a little higher. Fast forward to 2017, last year when I introduced the bill to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And the speaker's team came to us early in session and said, how can we help? And we were very close, late in May, right before the vote had to happen. We had like 59 or 58 votes, and the speaker's people came to me and said, who's trouble? Who's not voting for this thing? And I said, oh, these members are giving us a hard time. And they took him to the back room, and all of a sudden members came back out and said, well, you know, I think we're going to support them. So we passed the bill with 62 votes. And you know, I think the question to ask is, what changed? What changed from, I'm not going to twist anybody's arm, we have 50 votes in 2014, November of 2014, to I'm going to twist people's arms till they snap for 60 votes for $15 an hour in 2017, right? Can't even get to 60 for $10 an hour to I'm going to get that majority for 15. What are you going to tell us? What changed? Oh good, I'm glad. I want the suspense to build a little bit. What changed was the movement, right? $15 an hour became a national standard for basic decency. And it was a campaign that was fought in the streets of every major city in this country. It was led by low-wage fast food workers, supported by their allies in community organizations and organized labor. And they didn't take no for an answer, and they didn't take 10 for an answer, and they didn't take 12 or 13 or 14 for an answer. They demanded 15. They set that as the threshold of basic decency. And now that number is the number that you have to stand up for if you want to be seen as somebody who's on the side of working people. So, the moral of this story is that people in Springfield are difficult to reach, and they're entrenched, and they're powerful, and they don't like to change, and powerful, robust, community-driven grassroots campaigns can change their minds. So let's build one together. Thank you very much.